This video is powered by the pros at Pascal Air Plumbing and Electric. Arkansas owned, Arkansas operated. GoPascal.com.
One thing that people are unaware about anytime they listen to Brett Dolan do a ball game, baseball, football, basketball, gymnastics, soccer, volleyball, whatever, Brett was the lost member of Lips Incorporated, and you just heard them singing Funky Town on the way in here. It's quite a career transition, Brett. I like you in Lips Incorporated. You're better on the radio, though. How you doing?
That's the best intro I've ever had, and it made me laugh out loud. So, point Phil.
That's what I was looking for. I got almost more points than Iowa and Wisconsin combined for last week. That was it's a good thing you know how to call baseball because you got a baseball score.
Well, I did, and as a Hawkeye, that one was a little bit intense at times, but it's amazing. They threw for 36 yards to Iowa. They punted for more than 500. They won the game and really were comfortably ahead, other than it was 7-6 in the third quarter. The Missouri punter threw for more yards than the Iowa quarterback did with his 1 fourth down heave last week. And Iowa didn't take a single snap inside the Wisconsin red zone at any point in the game, but still got 15 points and won. So welcome to the Big Ten West.
I think, who did I see? Josh Pate has Arkansas ranked ahead of Iowa in his own personal power rankings. But yet Matt and I got into it yesterday. You can legitimately see a path for Iowa to get to the college football playoff because they should win their division. And who knows what happens in a Big Ten championship game. You win the Big Ten championship, man, you got to go to the playoff, right? It's right there in front of the Hawkeyes.
Well, I would think so, but they'll get tripped up at some point, whether they win 10 games or 11 games. Actually, this week they have to play Minnesota, who had a bye week. Iowa's lost their top quarterback. They've lost their top 2 receivers. It's a mess, but, again, every week, if you can't score, hold your team to fewer points than you score. But, this will be the last year where you'll have a Big Ten West and a Big Ten East, and I think most of the Big Ten West teams, as excited as they are to win that division, will be pleased not to have to play a Penn State, Ohio State, or Michigan, possibly for a second time.
Brett, there's a handful of games I'm looking at that are some top 25 matchups. I want to stay in this or go over to the SEC right now and ask you about Josh Heupel's Tennessee going to Tuscaloosa to beat Bama. And this isn't the same Bama team that's been, a Nick Saban Bama team. Do you think they could be in trouble this week against Tennessee?
Well, you're right? That Alabama's not near as dynamic, but Tennessee isn't either. Tennessee's not to the level they were offensively a year ago. Last season was such a dramatic, exciting win for the Vols in that series. I think it was a 52-49 game. It had ended a streak of something like 15 straight years Alabama had won that game. It's kind of a sneaky good rivalry, but to be a rivalry, you need somebody to win more than once every 15 years. I think Alabama's going to be, and it's hard to make this analogy, kind of the Iowa, the SEC. I think they're just going to keep winning. They may not look good doing it, but I would probably lean Alabama, and in part it's because they're at home. But the Joe Milton offense has just not been near as good for the Vols.
Difficult to get Milton to play at the same level as a quarterback that beat him out.
Right.
From last year with Hendon Hooker. It's just not the same guy. What do you, it's a must win for Arkansas, right? It's a must win for Mississippi State. To me, it's a football game of 2 really desperate teams that absolutely have to have a win at Reynolds Razorback Stadium. There's just no other way to look at it.
Clearly. And for Arkansas, I would think that as well as they have played, despite the fact they've lost 4 games in a row, having a chance or having a lead in the fourth quarter each of those 4 times, this would be their opportunity to get it back in gear. It's just so unfortunate for the fans to go this long without having this team play in Fayetteville. And I hope that the team responds with a good performance that kind of gets a chance to run up some wins. It's not going to be easy to go to Florida to win, even though the Gators aren't exactly tip-top. Auburn will be a force when they come here. But, you do run off 3 out of 4 wins over the next 4 weeks. It kind of leans towards that Missouri game again on Black Friday for a chance to get to 6 and get to bowl eligibility. But you can't get to 6 if you don't get to 3. And obviously that has to be a key focus this week. And, this is maybe where they lean on KJ Jefferson and some of the veterans. Just find a way. It doesn't have to be pretty, but get a win and get something going in the positive direction after almost an unfair schedule in the last month.
Have to find a way, scrap, claw, whatever you got to do, desperate, whatever you want to use. Arkansas, this is a must-win game right here, no question about it. And last week that Oregon Washington game, it lived up to the hype. It was an awesome matchup. Do you think this Penn State Ohio State can live up to the hype? How do you see this one going?
I think it could be close. I don't know if it'll be as crazy. And I'm with you, Matt. That was a great game last week. I mean, Oregon had 3 times they went for it. Twice they bypassed easy field goals, and that didn't work out. Washington went for it late, 4th and goal, and did not score, and back and forth they went. I thought Oregon actually outplayed Washington for big portions of that game, but they did win because Washington was at home. So can Ohio State find a way at home? That's probably why they're favored. James Franklin has had a really good program, but he hasn't had any elite program. I think if you go back and look, Matt, at the last 10 years, if there was a 12-team playoff, Penn State would have been in it about 75% of the time. But they always seem to be in that 7 to 9 to 10 range, not good enough to be in the Final Four, but they would have been good enough to be in the Final 12. So they have to get over the hump. Franklin's 1 for 8 all time against the Buckeyes. That's got to change. It's an interesting quarterback matchup because Drew Aller is an Ohio kid playing for Penn State. Kyle McCord's a Jersey kid just across the border playing for Ohio State. I would probably think the Bucs might have enough at home, but if Penn State wants to make that jump, just like Washington did last week, you've got to find a way to win one of these games before they begin this Big Ten East round robin. And this would be the game, I think, for Ohio State that could allow them to kind of regain their footing. But for Penn State, this is their chance finally to kind of jump above those big two.
And you got Michigan and Michigan State, which is a good rivalry in and of itself. I don't know how good of a game it's going to be. Last year they fought in the tunnel, for crying out loud. So because of that, they changed didn't they create another tunnel or change the timing for the teams to go into the same tunnel at the Big House? This is a different situation now. I know that when Touchdown Radio set the schedule for this year, it was before Mel Tucker was fired for obvious reasons. So maybe you expected there was a better game. And there have been years where a not-so-good Michigan State team has surprised Michigan. But at least you get the storyline of the investigation inside on Michigan and sign stealing now. So there's a gift for you, Brett.
Yeah, I did think of the same thing today. It reminded me, I was in Atlanta a couple of weeks ago, and I was checking in behind 2 Dodger scouts, and I said, we're doing some advanced scouting today, are we? And they looked at me with a panic look on their faces. And no, we're not. But, maybe Michigan's been doing that, trying to get out and see some of their opponents in advance, which seems like kind of a big nothing burger. But, the funny part about this rivalry is that I think Michigan State's won 10 of the last 15. And for a while, they were the nemesis of Harbaugh, but that was under a different coach, D'Antonio, who always said he made that rivalry personal. And last year it was personal for the wrong reasons with that fight that you mentioned. Michigan State just blew a game that they had absolutely no business losing to a decent Rutgers team on the road last week. They had a chance to beat Iowa on the road, let it slip away. I don't think they've got enough, but it's a 7:30 start. It's a late night, possibly rainy night in East Lansing. Can they muddy it up? Can they frustrate Michigan? Michigan's best win to this point, I think, is Rutgers. And after this week, if they beat Michigan State, their best win will still be Rutgers. So their best games are coming. It's probably, I still think it's the best team in the Big Ten, but it would not surprise me at all if Michigan State didn't try and make this a ball game into the second half at some point.
Brett, the 2 quarterbacks, I guess, in college football right now, the kid from North Carolina and the kid from USC are kind of considering it, and it all shake itself out. But I just wanted to get your thoughts on what Caleb Williams' pop said and what you think about that. Is that a red flag if you were an organization? It kind of has a LeVar Ball feel to it almost, but would you be worried about that if drafting Caleb Williams?
It wouldn't thrill me, that's for sure. And I get to see him next week. We've got USC at Cal, and I thought USC had been overrated by far most of this year. And if they lose this week to Utah, which they may, they're going to kind of plummet a little more. But I'm curious to see this kid and see him again. I saw him early last year, Matt, at Stanford, and I thought, maybe he's got a chance to be in the Heisman race. I felt like it was his Heisman race to lose, and he really had his worst game last week at Notre Dame. But I would think there's some red flags. I mean, he's a good player. He'll be a top 2 or top 3 pick, but I would be a little bit concerned about the demands he's making. I don't know if he's a franchise-changing player, But he seems to have that air about him, or at least the expectation that the world's going to kind of cater to him. So, the interesting, what I'll be curious to see, Matt, is if he takes some lumps this week or later on in the season in the Pac-12, if that kind of brings him down a bit, because he was the odds-on favorite to be a two-time Heisman winner as early as last Friday, and I think that's changed a little. So I don't know if that's humbled him at all or not, or whether he can prove to us that he is the best quarterback amongst a very talented class of QBs around the country this year.
Well, if the whatever team drafts him doesn't accede to his demands of ownership and the football thing doesn't work, he's got a very bright future as an esthetician down the line. I think his nails are lovely. Got to ask you baseball, though, Brett. Phillies, the NLCS is over, right? I mean, there's no way Arizona comes back from this. I'm so glad that the Astros won a game yesterday because I cannot stand another layer of the baseball series that go with sweeps or that don't go the distance. I don't know if Astros Rangers is going to go the distance, but I hope it does. But I think the Phillies already have won.
Yeah, I think the Phillies, that's over. I think that's a team on a mission. Why they can't play better against Atlanta and win the divisions in the regular season, it's interesting, but it doesn't matter because this team seems to be made for October baseball, and I would think they'd have a tremendous chance if they get to the World Series to win it this year. But I think, Phil, with the Astros and Rangers, I don't know if it's a bold pick, but I think the winner of tonight's game wins the series. If it's the Rangers, it's 3-1. Houston's still not out of it. If the Astros win and it's 2-2, I really like their chances to find a way to win 2 more games going forward. It would be nice to have a 6-7 game series. I hope we get a 6 or 7 game World Series because I'm with you. The TV ratings have looked terrible because there's just been too many 2-0 sweeps or 3-0 sweeps, whatever it is, that have kind of just taken whatever interest there is and flushed it.
BetOnline is your #1 source for all your betting needs. Get the latest odds, lines, and matchup reports for baseball, boxing, golf, and more. BetOnline continues to be the fastest and easiest way to place your wagers, including live betting and your favorite casino and card games available to play right from your phone. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and get in on the action. Remember to use our promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online, where the game starts.